All right, Mike, you are up. What's your topic?
So, a topic I've been thinking more and more about is how is AI going to potentially impact marketing jobs, marketing careers, specifically in 2024. Now, I'll preface this by saying I have no special vision into what the future will be here. I'm not going to tell you some big, crazy prediction will happen, but I do think it's something worth thinking about in a, non-scary, but just very sober kind of way, looking at the capabilities of some of these tools and starting to plan in your own career, your own business, and start thinking about what that means for kind of human capital within companies. So I want to start off by teeing this up with just a few quick stats, because midway through this past year in 2023, we did our State of Marketing AI report. And we do this every year. It's like the fourth year we've done it. We had about 900 plus marketers and business leaders answer a bunch of questions about AI usage, AI understanding, etc. And some important data points jumped out at me as part of this that seemed to be kind of starting to tell an interesting story about cautiously optimistic AI usage and adoption, but also that we might want to start thinking about how this stuff is going to impact jobs. So first up, we actually had this year, 64% of marketers said that AI is either very important or critically important to their marketing success over the next 12 months. And that was a huge jump from the previous year where like 51% or so said the same thing. 77% of marketers that we surveyed said that reducing the time spent on repetitive tasks was the top outcome they want to achieve with AI. And when we actually segmented out people in the C-suite and their answers, that was also kind of the top outcome. And for our audience, this isn't surprising, but 98% of them said that they're already using AI in some way. Now, that could just be like experimenting. That doesn't necessarily mean they're using it for every single thing. And most of them would say they're still beginners and are positive about the technology. Now, here's though where warning lights started to kind of flash for me. So first, 78% of respondents, and this happens almost uniformly at this percentage every single year, said that their employers have no internal AI-focused education or training. So they're essentially kind of freelancing this, figuring it out on their own, which, as we've all seen, is not easy to do always. And despite all the widespread AI usage, when we asked, how do you see AI affecting marketing jobs in just the next 3 years, 40% of them said they thought more jobs would be eliminated over this time than would be created due to AI. Now, about 36% said more jobs would be created rather than destroyed. But interestingly, those who were CEOs or presidents were way more likely than like any other role to think that more jobs would be eliminated due to AI. So I'm going to pause there and kind of just contextualize this and say, really what we're kind of seeing is people are very excited, for the most part, to be adopting and experimenting with the technology. That's great. This technology is primarily being used to try to save time, to automate or augment repetitive work. But people are starting to kind of, in my mind, connect the dots that, okay, what happens when we start to actually save a bunch of time and dramatically increase productivity? Now, that's the piece that I kind of want to pause on and get your guys' thoughts on, because in my mind, everyone becoming 5, 10x more productive is fantastic. That will have a huge positive impact on businesses, on the economy. Ideally, 5 to 10x more of our work is stuff we actually like doing versus mundane stuff we don't want to do. But that also comes with a flip side. Just because we can do 5x more doesn't mean there's 5 times the amount of demand or work to be done. And that inherently becomes a math problem that's unkind, in my mind, to workers. Am I wrong on that? I mean, if there is increasing demand because we are saving so much time and money with AI, awesome. Businesses will boom, entire new companies and markets will be created. But if there's a cap on what someone's business can do in a given year, that just seems to me to say less people.
Okay.
You first, Andy.
This is historical megatrends and sociology and of the very big picture in the history of post-industrial revolution capitalism. It is repeating common normal trend. This has always happened. I think it feels different because the people who are paying attention to it and feel threatened by it are actually, in this case, the elite white collar knowledge workers. Like lawyers are worried about it. So, when a trend comes along, it's like, oh, containerization destroyed longshoremen and dock workers. Yeah, they didn't have as big a voice as the knowledge workers in today's economy. So I think it's becoming a kind of, but look back at history. This has always been true. This has happened every time. This is just the cycle. I think it creates a lot of the anxiety around the general topic, causes ripples through the political system as people feel left behind generally. And that's a sociological thing. It's not a marketing thing per se, but it just creates a tone of anxiety across the political spectrum. And there are groups of people that just feel like, what happened to us? And that's disenfranchising people is risky in the long run. But overall, I don't know about 5x or 10x. I think that the adoption rate might be slower, and you're looking at more like 20% and 50%, which is still massive. I think it's still massive. But yes, it is. This will be a change, and there will be moments when AI wipes out huge swaths of groups, like what happens when long-haul truckers are just replaced by self-driving trucks. What happens when all the call center workers are just replaced by AI? Like, these are moments when millions in one stroke can be displaced or disrupted. Translators. Yeah, there's lots of. We could make the list, or I think Boston Consulting Group has there's lists, right?
Yeah.
So in the end, we live in a dynamic. This is a message for individuals and each of you listening. We live in a dynamic time. Keep an open mind. Have a growth mindset. Be flexible. Invest in yourself. Stay nimble. Grow your relationships. Keep networking. Watch the trends. Try new tools. Invest in yourself. Go. Stay in school. Study like it's finals week. Even if you're not in school, keep researching. That's what I do because I'm threatened, right? I got to stay in front of this. I'm not necessarily a proponent of the technology. Honestly, I'm just trying to stay relevant and current. So it's a moment when each of us has to be responsible for our future, but it's not unlike any other moment in the last 250 years.
I have a lot to say, and ironically, Mike, so much of the stuff I'm gonna spit back at you guys is I learned from you, Macon, and your podcast and things like that. And so let me try to just do a couple of them right off the bat. Like, I teach AI to businesses, and they ask me, well, you must be a big fan. I'm like, honestly, I would like to have a faster horse, like that whole Henry Ford expression. This is too fast for me. This makes me uncomfortable. But what I would say is that I believe, if I was to guess, I think that there's going to be this big cutting of jobs, and then opportunities you're going to have. And so you're going to have this short-term chasm of job loss before job ideation and creation and things like that. And I'm scared for what happens in that little gap period. I really am, because I've already seen so many companies almost be in a position where they're jumping the gun. And one of the things I would say here, and this is where I did learn from Macon, and I don't remember who the speaker was, but I use her slides quite a bit. I'm a content marketer, and I make these promises, and I say, look, we create content, and it has really great ideation. We're going to follow up with really great research. Then we're going to compose, and then we're going to edit, and then we're going to have a whole content promotion strategy. And they're like, great. And then I go back to my editorial calendar, my team, and we really look at our time, and we spend so much of our time writing. Well, what happens when AI comes in and our writing time goes way down? Now, I could say, I'm going to keep the money, efficiency, that's great, less people, keep the efficiency. But if we all have those tools, I'm using this time, and this is literally what I'm coaching my team on, is in this short-term time of efficiency where the client isn't asking for, I need a reduction in my bill because I know it's easier to write, I'm saying pivot that time to the weaker parts of our game now, because it'll be too late later. So there's going to be more consequential things to do in ideation, in research, in editing, in content promotion that might be the only thing we can stand on later on when writing is all commoditized. So I'm like, use this time wisely now. But the other thing is I dream really big dreams of my clients, and I'm like, we can do all this stuff, customized video, I can reach all this stuff. And they're like, that's so great. But they're like, well, I don't even have a newsletter. I don't even blog consistently. I don't even know who my buyer personas are. Stuff like that. I'm like, well, if AI does the foundational things for us bigger, stronger, and faster, good marketers will actually get to work and do the real stuff. Like Andy and I joke about this comment all the time. We're like, now marketers are doing marketing work for real this time. You know what I mean? So great marketers, I think, are going to thrive. And I think marketers who were saying SEO is all about finding keywords that have low competition and just kind of just filling that void in that blue ocean. I'm like, I think that blue ocean just got real small. And so when I think about jobs and I think of all that stuff, like I'm coaching in my mind, myself and others, use this time effectively now. Before you cut people, pivot them to the weaker parts of your game, because later on you'll wish you had hands on deck to work on your weaknesses, because it's coming.
Yeah, I think I love the point about reallocating kind of human capital and, creativity. I think personally that's what produces the best results. I hope people are forward thinking enough to do that instead of that knee-jerk reaction, right? Like you mentioned. I also do joke that I have not yet met a marketer that has too little to do. Like we are all, 90% of the time, we're not even doing the job we were hired to do. So that could be the argument against possible disruption in the short term, is like, hey, maybe we'll actually all get to do what's in our job description instead of being a professional firefighter and whatever else we do in a given day.
When I sell our products and services, there's so many marketing companies out there that I don't really worry about competition, but let's pretend like I do in this case. I'm usually doing hand-to-hand combat of like, my agency is going to be better than this other agency. But the one I don't usually feel is Marketing Mary. That's like the internal resource that can do those things. Because I'm like, you don't have the time, expertise, or resources to do all that stuff. One of the things I do think is that companies Marketing Mary just got upscaled. And so now Marketing Mary is a little bit more of my competition. She's a little bit more of my threat, where I used to only just worry about other agencies.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's a skills leveler. It brings up the people who are lower skilled to higher levels. But to do that, that's partly what I was thinking. To do that, you really have to be pretty good at prompting. The people who write these really high-powered prompts are people that have a deep subject matter expertise to know how to train the AI or how to write a prompt that returns those responses. If I gave you examples of my most effective prompts, you'd be like, wow, that's a prompt? Like, yep, it is. I'm telling it all the success criteria of the thing that I'm trying to create, or I'm giving it lots of uploaded data to have it do this analysis. So in my experience, this is kind of maybe an unexpected observation. AI has added hundreds of hours to my job. I have worked way more this year than in a normal year, partly because I'm disrupted, but I have to do lots of research, lots of experimentation, trying things again and again, right? Shifting my content strategy, talking about these new things, trying new methods. It has not been a net time saver for me at all. It has added hundreds of hours to my job this year. Now, I've made this upside of that. I know I'm investing this time, but if you're doing it right, you're working hard. You're working hard at this. You're not abdicating. You're not offloading your stuff to a robot. You're training you're giving it 10x the training data you thought it needed at first. You're writing these very detailed prompts and improving them, iterating on them again and again and again before you know that you can trust your team to use them. It's a ton of work.
Just the news, and you're going to probably, Mike, be like, just keeping up with the news is a 30-hour-a-week job.
Yeah.
I can't even begin. I don't know how you guys do that.
I come into you and I come on like a spaz, Andy. I was like, they can do this, they can do this, You're like, dude, calm down.
I don't even try. I can't follow all that news.
Yeah. But Mike, you're one of 5 AI podcasts that I listen to. You're my favorite. Oh, but I'm like, serious, just keeping up with the news is crazy. Like you have a newsletter because you don't have enough time to go through all of it.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, and that kind of dovetails, I don't want to be so, down in the dumps about getting people afraid of disruption and things. I actually think that there are some interesting opportunities that arise from this in the short term. And so I kind of, also came up with, just thinking about this before the show, some ways that I think like people could create massive value in their careers in 2024 with AI. That I'm just going to throw at you guys and see what you think of them. The first one is kind of finding people you can listen to who can help you curate this stuff, because if you try to do it on your own, you may as well just quit. Like it's really, really hard. So finding some of those trusted voices is really helpful, but that actually dovetails into, like, I would say to anyone listening, a really obvious opportunity to start that's easier than you think is being, for lack of a better phrase, the AI literacy champion within your company or your organization. That doesn't mean you have to know every single thing about AI. It just means that you are the person people know can perhaps help or bounce ideas off of or teach about what's coming. So following, the developments week in, week out, however you're able, is a really good way to do that. I mean, you do have to invest, to Andy's point, a ton of time and energy into getting ahead on some of this stuff, but you don't have to be as far ahead as you think within any given company, I think, to be a leader in that space. So that's kind of a big one that I'm seeing being an obvious opportunity for people. Like, just raise your hand loudly and often within your organization to be saying, hey, I realize we're all trying to figure this out. I'd like to help.
Yeah, I think the leadership void is huge. And that's what I've been, that was my investment, is to to learn something so I can teach it. But there are, if anytime a category is created, that's opportunity. And anyone that decides to not wait, but to quickly try to upskill themselves can capture that opportunity. Look at TikTok. A bunch of new people have massive audiences, people you never heard of before. This weird example, but you guys get it.
But where I think you come in, Andy, and this is one of the concerns that I have with so many people jumping into AI, is that AI minus experimentation is a very poor form of teaching AI. And what I mean by that is, like, you look at Ethan Mollick, you look at some of the things that you're doing, you think all the stuff like that, like, it's one of these things that it's one thing to know it, but you do need time to actually get your hands dirty and say, this is what it is and this is what it's not. Because we just talked about Google today. Like, if you just preached it like the way it's been advertised to you, you're gonna be like, no, it doesn't do video to AI, but it looks like it does.
It's a really good point. That's another one of the things that I had as like a big area to create massive value in your own career is, and I say this as someone that co-hosts a podcast, that creates a lot of content, that's co-authored a book, that those things can only get you so far. Like, you have to be using this stuff. I would even argue today, you don't even have to be the best in the world with these tools. Just show me that you're able to do things with them. That's actually like your resume in AI, I would say, is show me that you were able to create a custom GPT to do something simple in marketing that saved you an hour or did something interesting. I mean, that to me is so important, because I think people, very rightly so, I understand why, you get analysis paralysis. You're like, well, I don't know all the latest models. I don't know all the tools. This is really overwhelming. And it is. I mean, it's really, really hard. But stop drinking from the fire hose for a week and just go fire something up. It's still shocking to me how many marketers have not even tried or know there's a difference between the paid version of ChatGPT and the free version.
So true.
It's really shocking to me. I mean, it
common.
brings me back down to earth a few times when I'm like,
Yep.
A lot of people, rightly so, are saying, hey, you've got to move fast. The world is moving fast. You're getting left behind. But then I'm like, well, you also realize there's like 90% of people out there that haven't even shelled out $20 for this.
Seriously. and I bet they've hardly used ChatGPT 3.5. If you took, this would be impossible to know, but what is the average number of prompts that marketers have used in their entire careers? Average across all marketers? Probably less than 100.
Yeah. And the number one is write me a rap song about.
Yeah, it was a poem. Right. They did 2 or 3 poems. And then they asked for like 6 blog articles, and then they took 2 months off.
Yeah.
Or
And
asked it for hyper-specific information that it hadn't been trained on. They're like, oh,
Yeah.
this thing sucks.
This
It
thing
doesn't
sucks.
work. You know?
Yeah.